is going on, guys? Matt Downs with Daily Grind Fantasy Sports here to give you the edge for this showdown slate between the Minnesota Vikings and Pittsburgh Steelers. Cannot wait to break it down. If I see one more defense make an optimal on any of these showdown slates, I'm going to explode. Yes, last showdown slate, it should have happened, and it did, obviously. But this is another lower over-under, so we're just going to start out by talking about defenses. Are defenses worth it? Yes, you obviously should include them in your player pool. However, you can gain an extreme edge by just getting rid of these defenses out of your player pool, because obviously the goal of every single showdown slate is to take down the showdown, right? Especially if you're an MME player. So if you just get rid of the defenses, you're getting rid of about 14.7% and 12% off the rip. That is my goal, to take down a GPP. Now, there are a lot of players who put defenses at their captain spot. When was the last time that happened? It didn't even happen on the last slate where the teams combined for 24 points. So again, in order for a defense to make an optimal, not even in the captain, they have to score a touchdown. But in order for them to be a captain, the score literally has to be about 3-0, and they have to force turnovers left and right. If you think that this game is going to be 3-0, then go ahead and captain the defense. But honestly, if you captain the defense, you're looking at like 5% captain rate. So if you get rid of the defenses, you're already getting a 5% edge. Just another way to think about it. Anyway, rant over about defenses. I'm getting rid of them. I'm literally, here we go. You guys can see it. First-hand experience here. I'm getting rid of the defenses out of my player pool. DraftKings should really consider getting rid of defenses altogether. But let's go ahead and start out here on the Pittsburgh Steelers side of the ball. 9K Ben Roethlisberger projected at 14 points, at least according to PrizePicks. By the way, if you guys haven't signed up for PrizePicks, go ahead and enter code using DGF for 100% matchup to $100. I'll be giving away some of my favorite picks here throughout the video. PrizePicks is where you simply hit the over or under on any certain fantasy point projection, and that's how you win. One of the easiest ways to play DFS today. But Ben Roethlisberger here projected at 14 points. I do think that is pretty accurate. If anything, he could go over that. Both teams do struggle versus the air. It looks like Minnesota ranks 31st against opposing quarterbacks, so that's one thing to note here. He is 9K. He's also not carrying the highest ownership that I would have thought at a 9K price tag, 35.6%, which makes me believe that he's more of a contrarian play, at least in GPP. So I don't think he's cash viable. You could definitely include him in your cash pool, but I do think Kirk Cousins is a lot more cash viable for reasons we'll talk about a little bit later. But Ben Roethlisberger, 35.6%. If you think this is going to be a passing type game, which it could easily be, then yes, I would load up on Ben Roethlisberger, and it looks like a great leverage spot. Just don't put him in your captain spot. He definitely won't be one of the highest scoring players here on the slate. Switching over to the running back position here, we have Najee Harris and Benny Snell. Najee Harris obviously is the workhorse back for this team. He is 10K, has come back down, has a little bit of regression here the past couple games, 15.7 and 6.7 points. Still not that bad if you want to argue about overall productiveness. But rushing attempts, he got 21 still last game for 71 yards. The game before that, he still was targeted in receiving game. Obviously, that entire game was just a bloodbath. Cincinnati beat them 41-10. So you can kind of throw that out of the way here. If you do expect this to be competitive, you do expect Najee Harris to be very, very involved in the offense. So at the 10K price tag, I definitely think he's cash viable. He should be in your cash lineup, and he's showing 37.8%. So he's a little bit higher on the Ben Roethlisberger, which leads me to believe that a lot of people will be leaning towards Najee Harris over Ben Roethlisberger. For what it's worth, he is projected at 16 fantasy points on PrizePicks. Benny Snell really isn't involved in the offense whatsoever. He is 1K, so he has to get to a 2-point projection, and he's only done that one single time this game other than preseason. So it just doesn't make sense there at that price tag. Even at the 1K price tag, definitely more of a GPP play. The only thing you'd be banking on there is if Najee Harris gets injured and then Benny Snell takes over at a 1K price tag, then you would get a lot of leverage there. He's only showing 4.5% ownership. Definitely just a big GPP option. Switching over to the wide receiver picture, very straightforward here from the Pittsburgh Steelers. We have Deontay Johnson, who's obviously the number one wide receiver. Target monster has been absolutely crushing it. 10.2K price tag. So I think the price tag does make sense. He is also very high owned. He's the highest owned out of all the Pittsburgh Steelers here. So I do consider him definitely cash viable. Him and Najee Harris, if you can get into your lineup, whoever you want to put at captain. It looks like Deontay Johnson has been better as of late. So I do prefer him in the captain spot over Najee Harris. If that's the direction you want to go, I definitely won't hate you for that. But 41.4% owned. Obviously, nothing more needs to be said about Deontay Johnson. Definitely a cash lock there. Chase Claypool, 7.4K. I definitely think that's a little bit too expensive for my taste. Definitely more of a GPP play. He has to get to about 14 fantasy points to pay off that price tag. I'm not thrilled about that. He's only hit that a couple times this season. I get it. They do struggle against opposing wide receivers at a 7.4K price tag. Definitely could be some good leverage there at 24.5%. But you're basically banking on a touchdown there from Chase Claypool. So definitely more of a GPP option. Not thrilled about it. And then James Washington and Ray McCloud. If I do prefer one or the other, it's going to be McCloud here at $3,200. Has been more involved in the receiving game. If we actually take a look here at the snap counts, he's on the field more than James Washington. At least he was last game. So looks like James Washington ended up playing 44% of snaps compared to McCloud's. Sorry, he played 37% compared to McCloud's 67 last week. So McCloud, I actually don't mind him as a value piece here. We do have him projected for 2.4 points. It's going to be the Deontay Johnson and Chase Claypool and Najee Harris type of game script, I do think. So Ray McCloud, if you happen to land on $3,200, is a little bit too pricey, but I do prefer him here out of the value options between James Washington and McCloud. Switching over to the tight end picture, we have Pat Freiermuth, who's been basically the wide receiver number 2 in this offense at this point. I actually do like him for leverage. $6,600 here. We have him projected for 8 points. He does have to get to about 12 points, and as you can see, he's been right around that the past 4 games. Another thing to note here is Ebron is completely out of this offense. He has been placed on IR, so he's no longer in the picture. So Freiermuth, when he was the only guy here on the field, he was killing it for this offense, getting extreme targets, red zone targets, down the field targets. He was pretty much involved in this offense all the time. So an 8-point projection, I actually do like that over if you're looking for another Prize Picks projection to hit the over on. But one guy I do like a lot more in terms of the over is going to be Zach Gentry. We're going to take a look at our Prize Pick board here. Right now, he's projected for 6.5 points. Keep in mind, Eric Ebron out of the picture here, and they haven't projected 6.5 reception yards. So you got to think about this from a logical perspective. He has to catch one ball to hit that 6.5 projection unless he only goes out for 5 yards. Probably going to hit that. So Zach Gentry over 6.5 yards is going to be one of my favorite Prize Picks overs there for our favorite entry here on the slate. That being said, at the 2.6K price tag, I don't mind it. Right now, again, $2,600. He has to get to about 5 fantasy points, 3, 2, 6.9, 2. And he's just I'm kind of neutral on him. I don't mind him as a last piece, especially if you are playing GPPs, but at a 5.6% ownership, he basically has to catch a touchdown to break the slate. And we always talk about kickers. I don't prefer Chris Boswell over the other kicker, which we'll talk about here, but they're both projected very well, and they're both very good kickers. So if you think this is going to be a kicking type of matchup, then go ahead and include them in your player pool. Usually don't prefer putting kickers in GPPs because they don't usually get much leverage over the field. They aren't usually the highest scoring players, especially at their price tags. But as a last piece in cash, if you want to do a double kicker type build, definitely don't hate that. That is a safe route to go. Last but not least, let's talk about the home team here with the Minnesota Vikings. Kirk Cousins, include him in your cash games, period. Like, that's just what you have to do. The Pittsburgh Steelers do struggle against the pass here. He's a 10.4K price tag, and if you think that the wide receivers are going to have a good game, talking about Justin Jefferson, KJ Osborne, and the other wide receivers, then Kirk Cousins is also going to have a great game. Historically, he does outperform Ben Roethlisberger. His ceiling is a lot higher than Ben Roethlisberger. And overall, just a great play here. Really, nothing more needs to be said. Unless they do go to Dalvin Cook, strictly on the ground, then Kirk Cousins should have a good game. Switching over to the running back picture, about 5 minutes before I recorded this video, they ruled Dalvin Cook inactive, ready to play for this game. Don't know what he's going to look like in terms of snap counts. No idea, as of right now. Again, I will pin a post in the YouTube comment section if anything changes, but we can expect a full workload here from Dalvin Cook. Both of these teams are in must-win games to make a playoff push, so Dalvin Cook, you have to expect he's going to be heavily involved in this offense because he's their best player. Okay, Justin Jefferson's also up there, but Dalvin Cook, one of the better players. Also a cash consideration. I know I'm throwing a bunch of expensive cash considerations at you, but Dalvin Cook, I don't know if I prefer him over Najee Harris. It's really going to come down to lineup construction, but I do think you need some exposure to either Kirk Cousins or Dalvin Cook. He's also showing the 3rd highest owned on the slate here. It's going to be tough. It's going to come down to a stud type build here. You might have to put a kicker in your captain spot or another value play that we'll get to later on in that captain spot to make this all work, at least for cash games. Madison was the assumed #1 running back here for this offense, assuming that Dalvin Cook didn't play. However, he's not anymore at $9,800. That price tag is very, very steep if both of these guys are active and he's only somewhat involved in the offense. I still can't expect more than 30% of the snaps here for $9,800 Madison. Unless they're just activating Dalvin Cook just to throw off the Steelers, there's no reason why you should be playing Madison in any type of lineup, in my opinion. And for what it's worth, they don't have any projection here on Prize Picks for either Dalvin Cook or Madison in terms of receiving yards, rushing yards, any of that, because they have no idea what's going to happen. So smart move by them, and really smart move to just not include a projection for them as of right now. Dalvin Cook, according to Fantasy Cruncher, is projected more than Madison. It looks like the projection hasn't been updated since that active announcement. Keen Nwangwu, sorry, I don't know if I pronounced that right. Really not my player pool whatsoever. I'm probably going to X him out, especially if Madison and Dalvin Cook are both active. Switching over to the wide receiver position, Justin Jefferson. What a beast he has been, looking like an MVP type player. 38.6 points, 40.2, 25.9, and 13.2 the past 4 weeks. This guy should make the optimal, especially without Adam Thielen. That's another thing to take into consideration here. $8,600, obviously you take him completely out, and there's a huge void there. I think Justin Jefferson, yet again, another stud that you should have in terms of ownership and also upside. He's also the highest owned here on the slate. So let's just kind of recap this. In terms of the pecking order, I do think you prioritize both the stud wide receivers in terms of cash over the quarterbacks. Justin Jefferson and Deontay Johnson. And then from there, it goes to Kirk Cousins and then Najee Harris. I think those are the types of guys you need to include in your player pool, especially based on their projections. And then you get to guys like Dalvin Cook and Ben Roethlisberger if you can get to him, which is the reason why Ben Roethlisberger is really not showing that high of ownership. Because really, these quarterbacks don't have anybody else to throw to. That being said, KJ Osborne next on the list here. Let's talk about his price tag at $5,600. Definitely don't mind it. It's going to be interesting to see what he looks like without Adam Thielen, which we don't have a sample size on. 8.5 is what we have as a projection. He has to get to about 11-ish points to cover that price tag. He did exactly that last game, but that was because he got a touchdown. He pretty much has to catch a touchdown to hit his price point. So I'm kind of neutral on him as well. But one guy, probably my favorite value play here on the slate, is going to be Dede Westbrook here. Not saying that because he's an ex-Jag. I'm saying that because when Adam Thielen did come out here in week 13, he did see, oh, this is the wrong snap count chart. Dede Westbrook saw 42% of the snaps after Adam Thielen came out. He came out in about the second quarter, or was it the first? Regardless, he played nearly half the snaps. That's more than enough for a 2.2K price tag. We haven't projected for 4.5 points, so that's hitting value. I think he has plenty of upside, assuming he sees 50+% of the snaps, and probably my overall favorite value play on the slate. And this slate does lack a lot of value and could make for a good captain spot, especially in cash games, because you're trying to get to all the other studs. Then last but not least, we do have the tight end picture here. Conklin, kind of neutral on him as well. We haven't projected at 8.5 points, a 6.2K price tag, and he's just more of a GPP play in my opinion. Obviously should get an upgraded role because of Adam Thielen being out, but other than that, just an okay play. And yes, we do have to talk about the kicker here, Greg Joseph, 23.6% owned. I do consider him as the last piece in cash if you aren't able to get to some of these other studs. He's probably your safest option between him and Boswell, but I do like both. And I completely forgot about giving away the other two free prize picks, but you guys saw him earlier on in the video. Kirk Cousins, 16.5. I think that's a little bit too low. He's hit that 4 of the past 5 contests. I'm going to also be hitting the over on Kirk Cousins. Najee Harris, 3.5 receptions. He's hit that 4 of the past 5 contests, and the last time he didn't hit it, he got to 3, so just right under that mark. I do think he gets more heavily involved in the offense here. 3.5 receptions. He's always being dumped off to from Ben Roethlisberger. Love the 3.5 over projection, and that will wrap up my video, guys. Hopefully you did enjoy this content. If you did, please do hit that subscription button, notification bell, and of course smash that like button for all of our future NFL content. With all that being said, have a great rest of your day, and let's cash.